Okay, what's going on? Hey everybody, how you doing? This is TruePowerIsMine and this is TPIM. That's our live. Tonight's guest, we have Mr. Shawn James, a man from the East Coast. He has opinion. If you really take the time to watch his videos on his channel, he pretty much talks common sense. And I'm thankful to the listener that inspired me to reach out to him. Shawn, you still there?
Yes, I am, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I want to make sure the microphone's picking up and everything good. All right, let's just jump right into it. All right, I've seen one of your videos. I'm not going to lie. I know that you have a plethora of videos on there, and I will be checking them out. But I want to actually talk about the political climate of the country right now. In your assessment, sir, your honest, cold, hard assessment that many people may be upset with, could you please kind of give us an assessment?
Well, when it comes down to the political climate, it's really, as I see it, really directionless. It's like nobody really is wanting to set a course for leadership. So everybody wants to go around and talk about what needs to be done, but no one wants to take a lead role. And then when people try to take a lead role, they want to try to criticize and complain, but then they don't want to focus on solutions.
Yes. Yes. And this is, I believe this is what we really need to, enough of the whole history lesson about this and that, all right? I get it. History's kind of messed up. Not kind of, it actually is. But the solutions to, let's say, the homosexual agenda or the racial divide, what are some of the solutions?
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I was just asking, what do you think is a solution to say the homosexual agenda, the discharacterization in the media of different various groups? How can we solve some of these social problems that we're all facing?
Well, I think that the problems have been overblown and exaggerated because when it comes down to the whole thing with homosexuals, I thought Barack Obama solved that.
Well, he was our first gay president. He was our first gay president, no doubt. But he didn't quite solve it. Like earlier today, the judge was telling us in California, they're teaching boys and girls as young as in the 3rd grade homosexual positions and stuff. I find that terribly distasteful. I'm not a homophobe. I'm just a father.
I find that to be inappropriate for an 8-year-old to be learning about.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to learn, that has no place for an 8-year-old to be learning that type of stuff, and that's inappropriate as I see it.
But that's coming throughout the nation, you see. I mean, they won't even teach, and the sad thing that the judge pointed out, they won't talk about, and I'm going to use this word, please, I hope you're not offended or no one's offended out there, but normal sexuality versus this deviant pervertedness. And trust me, I have nothing against homosexuals as a whole or individuals. I have something against an agenda being orchestrated using political power and might to influence our children. That's the problem I have.
I have something against that myself. I feel it's just wholly inappropriate to be trying to indoctrinate young children like this. I was on Facebook a couple of days ago, and they showed one of the books from California talking about these sexually deviant acts like BDSM and anal sex, and it's inappropriate to be teaching children this type of deviancy.
Yes. Now, as far as education, and I asked the judge too, but I really like to get your opinion. Do you feel that, or do you not feel, but do you think that creationism should be taught in schools, or evolutionism should be taught in school, or a combination of both?
I believe that it should be creationism as the core foundation. Then we can get into evolution. And the whole thing is that we put both there, and then children can make an assessment at the appropriate age. And the whole thing is we're trying to teach children stuff that they have no understanding of at an early age. And that's all about indoctrination. And it's not about education. That's what your school systems today are. They're about indoctrinating people into these ideals and these ideas, and not trying to educate them so they can make choices objectively.
Correct. Now, would you agree that intelligence is more than just mere memorizations of facts, figures, and dates?
I would have to agree with that, because as I see it, intelligence is about how you apply knowledge. It's not about just memorizing things. It's about how you learn how to think critically about knowledge, how you process knowledge, and how you analyze knowledge and then deconstruct that knowledge and then can actually take it apart and then put it back together into something more constructive.
This is what I'm talking about. We have to get to the point where all of our decisions, we base them on due criteria, whether they're destructive or constructive for our personal operations. I think we would be far better off.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see people learning how to think critically and how to analyze facts and statistics and knowledge and just take, information apart. And that's something I had to learn how to do when I actually got out of school. I started learning how to do thinking critically instead of just memorizing information, because a lot of public schools do teach you how to just memorize stuff and to get answers on tests, but never teaches you how to think regarding the answers you're getting. Correct. Or how you got about it.
Correct. And when we're doing these critical thinking exercises, do you think it's important? I mean, I know this is kind of a silly question, but do you think it's important for us to have a clear cause and purpose for our actions?
Yes, there needs to be a clear cause and a purpose. And you have to have, a way that you're going to apply this knowledge, and you have to take that knowledge and have a way to research it and then process it so that you can come out with a constructive conclusion so that you can have a base for that knowledge to be used.
Yes. The whole purpose of my platform is to bring different minds and different philosophies. I would interview anybody. I don't care who it is, as long as they're bringing something of substance to the table. Usually it's their truth, and not using truth like it's subjective like that, but it kind of is relative to the person and their particular life that they're leading on this planet. But the whole purpose now is to disseminate information. So are you up to par on, say, conspiracy theories such as the Federal Reserve and how that's broken down into how it actually affects us?
I'm aware of it, but I don't really put too much into it. I know about some of these conspiracies regarding the Federal Reserve, but as I see it, the banking system is just one of the things we have in the country that allows our economy to function.
Right, but would you agree that it would be best served that the Department of Treasury issues the fiat currency instead of a private corporation issuing a fiat currency that we have to pay interest on?
That would be maybe a better way about going things. I would agree with that.
And do you think the reason why it isn't like that now, ever since 1913, would be because the people who control the political candidates now can use money as a leverage device of sorts? I'm saying they can fund both candidates. No matter who wins, they keep printing the money.
Well, that's what they do. It usually doesn't matter what candidate wins. It's just they're going to get paid no matter what. Because the candidates are all about doing what whoever gives them money, and that's all that matters to them. It's like whoever has the money at the end of the day, they're going to follow the money.
Yes, and they do. They follow it all the way to office. All the way. So let's get into a kind of harder question. What is your opinion on the Black Caucus, the Congress member banding together for African-American causes? What is your opinion on them?
Well, they really don't serve African-American causes, as I see it. When it comes down to your Black Caucus, they're clearly disconnected from the Black community, and they really don't represent Black people. They usually just represent themselves or whatever corporate interest tells them to do. So they usually vote along the party line, but they never really serve the community that votes for them.
Wow. Well, not trying to sound like a agitator or a rebel rouser, but how can we fix that? How can we get qualified men and women to vote for our constituency?
Well, the whole thing is Black people have to create a platform for themselves, and when they create a platform for themselves, then the candidates will come to them. And what the Black people need to do is create that political platform, the Black business owners and the Black economic base. But the problem is, when it comes down to the Black community, they don't support the economic base that will get them the political platform. They don't connect economics with politics because they're so busy thinking that politics is an emotional thing, not understanding the economic foundations of politics.
So you see emotions kind of, it's like our Achilles heels, we're too emotional as a group.
Yeah.
And
that's Black folks' big problem is that they approach situations from emotion and they don't put enough logic into it and they don't have enough balance. Because when you approach things with balance, you understand that in order for you to get political power, you need to have an economic base. So we need Black-owned businesses and Black communities in order for us to have politicians that we vote for, because usually most Black people, they vote based on feelings and based on old ideas regarding Lyndon Johnson and the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Act of 65, and not thinking about what we need for today. They're not thinking about what these candidates have done in the last 30, 40 years. They just vote down a Democratic ticket or Republican ticket, and they don't think about what type of candidate they're sending to Washington or what agenda they're sending them to represent.
Wow. What do you think should be our purpose collectively? Other than, I mean, I'm apart from the economic, strictly on social behavior or social issues as a whole. What do you think should be some things we could collectively rally behind?
Well, we have to rally behind building a economic base, and we also have to rally behind developing an education base for our people, because if we don't control things like our schools, we don't have a place for our kids to get culture taught to them, and we don't have a place where we can lay a foundation for core values. And when it comes down to many Black public schools, they are predominantly run by white women, and those white women are the ones controlling the culture and the narrative of our schools. And when it comes down to our economic base, we have these foreigners controlling that. So we are not really in control of anything, and that's something that's really bad for our community overall. So we need to focus on developing foundations for ourselves as related to our political base, our education base, and our social base. And we really have to develop a set of standards for ourselves overall.
Now, with that being said, and this is where I'll take it for a history lesson, or at least a historical question I want to pose to you. Is that condition which you just described that we're presently in, was that done by chance, by mere nature, or was it done by design, human plan behind it?
I believe it was done by design by individuals on the left who wanted to undermine the Black economy. And I believe it was done in the 60s in the days of the Civil Rights Movement. It was done by design because they knew that a lot of Black people who wanted to be a part of the Civil Rights Movement wanted to integrate. They wanted white acceptance. So by design, they wanted to undermine Black people because they wanted white acceptance. So they felt white was better. And what happened is they integrated, and they wound up destroying all their bases because they wanted to get that acceptance. And the people knew that, like Lyndon Johnson knew that. So they gave them that acceptance, and that's where everything fell apart for Black people.
Wow. What now? Obviously you lived during this. I'm assuming you was alive, probably a young boy. Was there any Black leaders when you was a young man like that that you looked up to or inspired you in any fundamental way? Any?
No, not really on the political side. Usually, a lot of the people outside of Bill Cosby and in the 80s, I got Robert Guillaume. Those were guys who inspired me and influenced me. But a lot of the political guys, I didn't really care too much about them because they really weren't about anything. I look at the community and they weren't really doing anything.
Wow. So you're talking about like the people like Jesse and Sharpton and who else was cracking really big in the 80s? Oh my God. Even Khalid Muhammad, some of the Islam folks, none of them was resonating with what you were trying to do?
Not really, outside of maybe Khalid Muhammad. I mean, some of the things he was saying, they resonated with me because he was really calling stuff out, and they ostracized him and marginalized him.
Yes, one,
and also Sister Scheherazade.
Oh, now,
Scheherazade Ali.
What about Sister Frances Wessing?
I haven't read too many of her works, but I've heard of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the only reason why I mentioned that, I recently had Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. on the show. Brilliant man, brilliant mind, tells it like it is. A lot of people don't want to hear the truth, Brother James, because it's unpleasant, and the truth always compels one to act. If I see you doing something inappropriate and I come to you truthfully, you may hate me because it will force you to either acknowledge your wicked ways or change your ways. And a lot of people, what we really want to do is sit, moan, and gripe, but never really change our fundamental behavior. We have to get to the point where we change ourselves. Because, you know, brother, you have seen it. You've seen the 80s, you've seen the 90s, 70s, and all that, and all the rhetoric, but nothing has changed. If anything, it's somewhat gotten worse.
Yeah. Yeah, because when it comes down to people, they are good at talking, but then when it comes down to change, it's something they're not used to. Now, I myself had to make changes in my life, and I know how hard change is. I remember being in high school, and I felt like I was going nowhere when I was at the school Park West, and then I prayed to God to change my life, and I had to go through a lot, and I had to change schools, and I had to change the way I did things in life, and it's very hard and painful because it means you have to come out of what you knew and do something different. And when it comes down to people, there's a lot of fear as related to change, and that's why they don't want to change. They want to stay in the same thing and be a victim because they're afraid to move forward. Not understanding that when you move forward, you are going to move to a better place.
Wow. You know, could you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself? Have a question from brother Cook. He just wanted to know a little bit of your bio.
Well, I am the author of over 60 books, and I have been writing for over 25 years. And over the last 20 or so years, the reason why I became a writer is because I had a hard time finding work. In my spare time, I would go out here and write stories. I was trying to submit books to publishers, and I couldn't get books to publishers, so I decided to do it myself. And it was a rough road that I went on. First, I started with a print-on-demand company in 2002 when I did my first book, ISIS. And then I spent I lost a job. I spent 5 or 6 years trying to get back up on my feet. 2008, I finally got another job, but then that job got lost. But I saved up enough money to start my SJS Direct imprint. I launched my first book in 2009. And over the last 10 years, I've published over 60 books. I think I did about multiple, 5 or 6 novels, the ISIS series, the E-Steam series. Last year I started the John Haynes series, and I have done several nonfiction books like Stop Simping and the Simp trilogy, and my recent nonfiction book, The Man Crisis. So I'm writing almost every day, and I'm making videos almost every day, and that's been my job for the last 4 or 5 years, making YouTube videos. So that's who I am right now, and I'm trying to build and expand on the SJS Direct imprint, and I'm trying to reach new audiences, and I'm trying to expand my customer base and reach new readers all across the world. And thank God I've been able to do that with the help of brothers like yourself, Obsidian, Judge Joe Brown, and God leading and guiding me. So I'm still trying to go out here and do what I can do. I'm trying to reach new readers and help and expand my imprint, which is about creating positive stories about the African-American experience, diversifying the African-American book market, and getting Black people to read things like African-American fantasy, science fiction, and about different subcultures in the Black community, like the goth subculture. So that's my platform in a nutshell.
I'm going to, hold on 1 second. I'm posting his link to his YouTube channel in the chat room, y'all. All right, this is his link. I'm going to play an excerpt from one of your videos real quick, if you don't mind.
Okay.
It's the Steve Harvey and Empire canceled. Karma comes to 3 minstrels. I tell you, these titles. This is for you, Sister CJ. I'm just going to play a couple moments of it because I don't want to get
available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. E-Steam Goddess of Hell's aspiring angel takes on a demonic dominatrix in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Goddess of in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Yesterday, Karma came to 2 minstrels. Well, actually 3 when we throw in Mussy, Dusty, Jussie Smollett, but 3 minstrels suffered karma coming to them. The first of these minstrels to suffer karma was your Steve Harvey with the official announcement that his show had been canceled. And the second minstrel to wind up dealing with karma was your Lee Daniels. And your Lee Daniels found out that his minstrel show, Empire, was being canceled by the Fox network. And this was a compounded blow because his other minstrel show, Star, had been canceled previously. Now, your Steve Harvey is dealing with official karma as related to his career because your Steve Harvey decided that he was going to go Hollywood and abandon all of the people who worked with him in Chicago when he took his show from Chicago all the way to California. Unfortunately, when he decided to go to California and go Hollywood, what he did was change the format of his daytime talk show into some sort of celebrity fest where they were sitting there, all they were doing were plugging products and movies. And that's what people want to see on a late night show, but that's not what people wanted to see on a daytime show.
Wow. Yeah, check out the video. I posted up both the link to your channel and the video. I love the way you break that down. I love the way you break that down. But now, can we talk about that book? The title was so intriguing. Man Crisis?
Yes. That was the new nonfiction book I wrote at the fall of 2018 because I saw so many men out here suffering, and a lot of men they are struggling out here to survive, and they're having a hard time because a lot of men these days, over the last 50 years, they were raised in these single mother households, and they never got any sort of instruction or guidance from their fathers. So they didn't get the male life skills or male survival skills that they need to go out into the world. And then they go out into the world with these skills they learned from their single mother, and the whole world just falls completely apart.
Yes, because don't forget, women still use their women wows to get the man with the economic means. That's just kind of the way it rolls. If you don't understand your role in that, you're going to be messed up.
And what happens is the boys try to use those same type of wows that the women use to get men in the world, and they don't understand that the world works differently for men than it does for women. And they try to use these female life skills that they've learned from their mothers in the real world, and they wind up falling apart because the world is not going to give them the same leeway that they would give a woman or the same passes. And they have different expectations for men than they do for women. So this is why so many of these men are getting frustrated, angry, and they're self-destructing and participating in self-destructive behaviors like getting on drugs, participating in mass shootings, joining gangs, or committing suicide.
Wow. And that's just because they see no light at the end of the tunnel. So they just want to jump off the ride right here, right now.
Yeah, they're committing suicide and they want to give up because they don't understand is that there is a different way. There is a way for them out of this, but the whole thing is they have to embrace men and learn male life skills. But the whole thing is the feminist culture we've had in the country over the last 50 years has taught them to hate men. But that's ironically, the only person who can help them survive is another man, and then only another man who knows what the life skills to teach another man how to survive in the world.
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The trade I know is taught to me, or when I was, start off at 15, was older men that did what I was about to do. This is how you do this. This is how you stack lumber. This is how you lay out walls. This is how you set trusses. And you have to go there not with the attitude you know every damn thing. Go there with the attitude that you don't know nothing, and you're like a little sponge. You need to soak up all the knowledge. But that's then it's up to us men to be honest with these young men and give them the real deal, not some lies, some BS. They need to have life skills.
And the sad thing is nobody's teaching them because we've all been taught to think that men are bad. And that's what I had learned over the last 30 years watching television. And it wasn't until they changed the TV transmissions from analog to digital that I started to see a really big difference in the way we were raising men and teaching men. Because in the old TV shows, it was all about teaching one older man, teaching a younger man and preparing him for life in the world. But after the 70s and 80s, we got these sensitive guys and these nice guys, and it was all about pleasing women and making women happy. And those guys, they learned about meeting a woman's emotional needs and not about learning about male survival skills or male life skills, because feminists took control of the television networks and changed the narrative. And we've had this gynocentric narrative for over 50 years, and that's why these guys are not learning what they need to learn. We've demonized the fathers and made the father the bad guy, but without the father, we're not going to get the so-called good man that women want, because only a father can teach the boy skills to become the type of man that has the character and the values that they in order to survive.
Right. I mean, they may say they want one thing, but we know what they kind of really want. I mean, you heard about this new movement. I guess it's not so new now. It's called MGTOW, or MGTOW, men going their own way, right? Basically, they use code words like red pill and all this. What is your thoughts on that philosophy?
I've been living that philosophy ever since the late 80s, before it was even a name. I mean, I've been living like that for years, and as I see it, that's just going God's way. It's a man, you know, following God's order and God's leadership. It's a man following natural masculinity. And what the red pill is just you living by the world observable reality and doing things that are real, and not trying to fit yourself into this rose-colored world, which is what the blue pill world is, and trying to fit yourself into this imaginary world that women have created and imagined that just doesn't work. So what people call men going their own way, I just call it men going God's way. And it's a philosophy of men learning how to just go out here and build themselves up, putting themselves first, and focusing on doing things that help them actualize their potential and move themselves forward.
Wow. So you're looking at it as a absolute positive direction. Instead of a young man out here chasing down the woman, he needs to be chasing down the money. It's sort of like that old saying, look, young man, you will never lose a woman chasing money, but you'll always lose money chasing women.
I'd have to say that's true, because when it comes down to women are natural followers. That's the way God created women. He created the woman to be a helpmeet and a support to men, and to be a natural follower of men, because when it comes down to women follow a man's lead, and they're looking for a man to follow. So you have to make yourself into a leader that women want to follow. And the whole thing is that the mainstream media and feminists have men chasing women and seeking their approval, when they should be going out here and focusing on putting God first and building on what God has them to do in this life. That should be their primary focus. But that's been all taken off because of these feminists who want all these men to be focused on pleasing them and giving them attention. And that's something I went in depth in the book, The Man Crisis, trying to help guys understand that they need to put themselves first, and they need to put God first. Really need to put God first, and then put themselves first, and focus on building on the goals so they can meet whatever purpose God wants them to accomplish in this life.
Excellent. I got a caller. Dorothy, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Do you have a question for Mr. James, the guest?
I didn't hear it real clearly, not at the moment.
Not at the moment? Well, we were just talking about what women need as far as a real man. I mean, you're a female. Do you want a sensitive, weak man, or do you want a strong man that has a sense of direction and purpose?
A strong man that has a sense of direction, never a weak one.
There it is. There it is, y'all. You know, I mean, what we're trying to get here tonight is get off this stupid tip where you got to be all wishy-washy. Just be your damn self. Be yourself. Be independent. Think for yourself. And I'm telling you, young men, and also young women, you want someone who is authentic and real. Someone who isn't played on. Someone who's a pillar of concrete. No matter what gets thrown at them, they keep their form. But a lot of our boys and girls, well, mostly the boys, they're kind of waffle on that.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, Mr. James, if we had an auditorium right now filled with young people, what would you tell them as far as some real wisdom, no BS, the real stuff that will enrich their lives? What would you tell them right now?
Well, I would always tell them to put God first and to put themselves first, and to focus on building, if you're a boy, to go out here and focus on building and pursuing your dreams, and always never give up on your dreams, because that's something that every boy has been taught these days not to do. But I would tell them to not give up on their dreams and to keep persevering. And that, yes, the road is going to be hard. The road is going to be rough. But if you continue to keep pushing, eventually God will work with you and help you towards achieving your dreams, and to keep persevering and keep pushing towards them. Now, when it comes down to the girls, I would tell them to go work with those decent brothers out there, help them in building what they need to build, and to not attack them, but to work with them, because there are decent brothers out here. And what they need is support from women. They need a help week who's going to help them out. So that's what I would tell those people in an auditorium as related towards getting their lives in order and getting themselves together and focusing really on trying to do your purpose on this earth, because you get one life to live, and it's about trying to find out what God wants to do on this earth and finding out what that purpose is in this life.
You know, this is what the purpose of this show. I want to take this moment and I want to do a couple of plugs. Shawn, do you have any Patreon, Cash apps? I see you can buy your book on Amazon. And if you do buy his book, please go to his YouTube channel and click the link there, so he can kind of get credit for it. Do you have any sources of people feel it upon themselves that they can't possibly donate to you?
They can donate to my Patreon. I leave a link in every one of my videos to my Patreon. They can also donate to PayPal by sending it to sjsdirectamerica@gmail.com. And they can go out and buy the books on Amazon.com. And I would really appreciate it if everybody picked up the books that are currently in the SJS Direct 2019 catalog, which are Isis, All That Glitters, Eastine Goddess Of, and the new John Haynes Dark Succubus, which came out just last week. I really need support on those books, and I really want to get the sales up on them. And if you really guys want to read my nonfiction, which is very popular, you can pick up The Man Crisis, which is also available on Amazon.com, with my other 60 books, which are on Amazon right now.
Awesome. Now, Dorothy, you're still on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Now, I know that you're having a little bit of issue right now. Could you share with us your Patreon and Cash App and PayPal, and y'all, if y'all could possibly bless these two, this brother and sister, with anything, I know it'll come back to you 100-fold. Yeah, we got to show each other we can help each other. Could you share your information real quick, Dorothy?
My Cash App is Dorothy, DOROTHY, capital M, capital G.
All right. And do you have?
And my PayPal is Obstacle Breaker 1, but my email is obstaclebreaker@yahoo.com. And if you have a problem, you can also call my phone at 334-268-2094.
There it is, y'all. There it is.
Your question before then, you were saying about being weak. But, I've been absent for so many years because, that's how my case went down. Because my child father fingered me and his mother and sent us to prison. I had a 20-year sentence in the federal prison, and his mother did 6 years in federal prison because he didn't want to take the time, and he singled her and myself out. He went to federal prison.
Wow. See, this is what
This
is what I'm talking about. That's the difference between an alpha male and a beta male. Listen, if you choose or elect to go out there and do illegal activities, and you involve your woman, you involve your family, oh, geez, at least be a stand-up kind of guy and take the fall for the people. Don't send the women and children to prison when you know that it's you who are financially responsible for taking care of these people. And that's just the way it is. I know it sounds bad, but like I said in the show today with Judge Joe, if you're not cut out to be a husband and a father, then you should not play the role. Do not act like a father or a husband. In other words, don't be going out there making babies. Not saying don't have sex. I'm saying don't be going out there making babies that you cannot or you will not be there for the long haul.
Right. Patrick, I want to clear. I just looked at something to correct something. My Cash App is $.
Okay.
Capital DOROTHY, capital M, capital G.
Awesome. Now, I almost called you Dr. James. I guess it's
a lot of people call me that.
But Now, when we look at the situation in Iran, I don't know how much you are on the geopolitical aspect of this thing. What do you see any potentiality for combat or military actions in the Suez Canal or that region?
I don't think it would be smart for the U.S. to engage in a war when they're already stretched thin military-wise. And I don't think it would be smart because that's what the Romans did, and it led to the fall of the Roman Empire. I mean, the U.S. has already got troops in Afghanistan, it's got troops in Iraq, and we're stretched really thin. We don't have the manpower to start another conflict, nor do we have the economic base to finance another conflict. So it's just not smart to engage Iran at this point. And I don't think the president would want to do that and put his approval rating, which is already struggling, at a risk, and give, leeway to the Democrats.
But do you not see that, like I've always said on the show, President Trump, in my opinion, just as a layman's humble opinion, he's a closer. What he does is he managed to successfully close down major corporations. He's done it 5 times. You know that we're $22 trillion in debt. We're not paying that off. And like any debtor, we had better be ready for the repo man to come a knocking.
Yeah, we're overextended quite a bit.
That's putting it nicely, brother. Quite a bit. We're never going to pay it back. Look, brother, let's just say you loan me $200,000, right? Oh, I'm good for it. And then I balloon that up to $1 million. At what point in time are you going to come and say, look, Patrick, I let this loan, go for the 80s, and now it's the 2000s. It's time to pay up. And what are you going to do when I'm like, hey, man, I don't have no money. I drunk it and ate it and partied on it all the way. What are you going to do?
Well, what's going to happen is they're going to come and take whatever has value. So,
but how are they going to take that when we have the 104th Airborne and we got DARPA backing them?
Yeah, but the whole thing is it costs money to finance that. So it's just not very. It's just like a rock and a hard place situation.
So I mean, do you ever see the potentiality of the United States being broken down into different regions and sold off?
It might happen, but what I don't know. It might be like the Roman Empire would get split into several different countries. Like we had Byzantine, and then we had the Roman Empire, which fell. Then we had the Holy Roman Empire.
Right, and they were all evil to the core, by the way. They were pagan. They were evil. They distorted the true gospels for political purposes. They were evil.
Yeah.
They killed children. They abused women. And they enslaved folks. They were evil, not to be worshipped or idolized. And honestly, it is good for the world that they died. It's just a shame that they ever came to power to begin with.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true with the Greeks.
They were a deviant and corrupt empire.
Absolutely. But you know what, brother? I don't care who you are. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Any empire with that type of level of power and sophistication is going to be tyrannical at the core.
Yeah.
Including us. I love the way that you phrased it as the empire, because most people don't realize not only is the United States a corporation, but it is an empire in its own respective right ever since World War II, when we took over policing what? Wait for it. The shipping lanes. We controlled the shippings. That's how we could force everyone to get on the petrodollar. I think you will be selling that oil in dollars, or else, your ships might have difficulties getting across the ocean. And it's not like we're pirates or anything. We're far more sophisticated than that. And the reason why we're at this point, and hopefully you can agree with me, Brother James, is because we have had mismanaged of the utter worst of the worst leading this nation, because of fraternities, because of secret organizations, and because of blood oaths amongst the elites.
Standard nepotism, favoritism, and cronyism.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So how do we really combat that? I mean, we can bring it to everyone's attention all day long, but we have to change tactics because no one's hearing. They don't care about the blood relations. How do you think we can really jolt people into waking up and saying, hey, this is what's going on?
Well, I think the whole thing is that everything has to hit a rock bottom point, because when it comes down to societies where you have nepotism, favoritism, and cronyism, you have people who feel that they're entitled to something. So because they feel entitled, they want to get theirs, and they don't care about anybody else. So if there's nothing there, that's the only way things can change, because the people who feel entitled, they don't want to change anything because they don't want to acknowledge the problems. And I saw that when I was trying to go for these civil service jobs in this hiring pool for the City University of New York. Nobody wanted to change anything. They were just about what made them comfortable, and they could care less about anybody else. It was just all about what they wanted and what they could get. And they had their little fiefdom, so they didn't feel responsible towards anybody else. So that's all about what they want. And the whole thing is, in order for them to want to change everything, is they have to lose everything.
Wow. But how can we get them to lose everything when we barely have any power left?
No, the only way they're going to lose is if everything just falls apart. The only thing is like the guys who are going their own way. They're just walking away because they see it's a rigged game. And if you walk away, the whole thing falls apart on itself.
Wow. But that takes discipline and responsibility for self, which is, not really, valued.
Well, it's something that people are going to have to learn how to do. I mean, because if you're not getting any benefits from things, and I see that with the millennials, the Gen Zs, they're starting to walk away from America. They're not participating in society anymore because they don't see anything in it for them. They're like, look, why should I go to college if I'm only going to get stuck with is 6 figures of debt, and I can't get a job that pays, or I can't even go out here and start my life. So why should I even go out here and try to do anything if no one will support me? You have all these baby boomers. They have just created a fiefdom for themselves. And when they retire, what they do is they close all the jobs out. They won't let any Gen Xers in. They won't let any Gen Y. They won't let any millennials or Gen Z come in. They don't think about what the future is for somebody else. It's all about them. And that's why so many people are just walking away and just letting everything just fall.
Man, but then don't you see that's not going to work? Because then we are sure enough headed for discombobulation, meaning this nation, this continental nation, will be separated.
Yeah, well, that's the sad state of affairs, but that's what Americans of the baby boom generation did to everybody, because they were just so selfish and they didn't think about the next man coming after them. All they thought about was the world just about them. And the whole thing is, people, in order to preserve a legacy, they have to see a value in something. But when it's all about you, you don't see about how what you have relates to somebody else. And that was always the big problem with the baby boom generation, is that they were so given everything, and they feel that they don't have to give back to anybody else.
So it's selfishness. Let's just call it what it is. They're being selfish. Well, I'm about to die. I don't care about the country. So much for the greatest generation.
They've got this whole mentality of I've got mine, F you, and you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But the whole thing is they're not thinking about the next man like the greatest generation did, or the generation before that. They always thought about the next generation and what they were supposed to have. They thought about legacy. They thought about the future. But with this baby boom generation, they just had everything given to them, so they don't really care about anybody, because they never had to work hard for anything or earn anything or build anything, because everything was given to them. Yes. So they just abandoned everybody.
As an author, I think this question is going to really resonate with you. What is your thoughts about artificial intelligence in relationship to how it's creating manuscripts and screenplays and books?
Well, what you're going to get with artificial intelligence is a manufactured book. You're not going to get a real story that's inspired or creative. You're just going to get the same ideas cut and pasted. And that's what we're getting in Hollywood right now, just cut and pasted stuff. There's no inspiration, because inspiration comes from the soul. Yes. Inspiration comes from the spirit. It comes from the inside of a person. That's what makes everybody's stories distinct. Now, when I go out here and create stories, I draw inspiration from many different places. Like, for example, one of my characters, Eastine, was inspired when I was watching Gargoyles back in 1995, and I found out that one of the actresses, Sally Richardson Whitfield, was one of the black actresses, one of the few black actresses to ever get a role playing a Disney character. That's where I got the inspiration for that. And one of my books, The Temptation of John Haynes, was inspired by something my mother told me about the devil not liking me. And another one of my books, Spinsterella, was inspired by something I heard actress Persia White say about being too dark for being light-skinned. So inspiration is something that you're not going to get from the computer. Artificial intelligence cannot inspire a book, and it can't give it that soul, and it can't give it a heart. And that's another thing that is related to writing that people don't understand, that books have a heart. And when you read a book and you read the messages in the book, you get this heart in the story, and you don't get that from a machine. A machine cannot give a book a soul or a heart, and that's something that you can read between the lines of the pages of the story, and you can really feel the writer's voice or the writer's ideas or their energy. And a lot of times writers like myself, we transfer our energy onto the page. You're not going to get that with artificial intelligence. All you're going to get are cut and pasted things from a computer based on an algorithm, and an algorithm is intelligent, but it has no spirit.
Right. It has all the memorization components, but none of the, think about it, the actual muse that most artists have, whether they're physicists or they're painters or they're, composers. It's like they're connected to the source itself. And that's what gives us that brand new flavor, that brand new vibe that simply cannot be duplicated in a artificial capacity.
Yeah, it's that spirit that gives every creator's work a fingerprint, and it makes it distinct. Like whenever I look at, for example, when I was looking at Mike Williams' art, he does the covers for the John Haynes books, and his art has a distinct feel. And I hired another artist, Bill Walko, who does the covers for the Isis and Eastern series, and his art has a unique feel to it. And it's those fingerprints that they put on their work that draw people to that work, and it draws people into the story. So you cannot get that distinct fingerprint from a computer, because computers, they usually just run on patterns. And I learned that back in the day when I was playing PlayStation 1. Everything with the computer is a programmed pattern from a person, and you're not going to get anything unique, because when it comes down to computers, they just do things over and over as they are programmed to do. And artificial intelligence just does what humans tell it to do. You're not going to get that fingerprint like you would with art, where you get that distinct take from the writer, or that distinct spirit from the writer, where you see their heart on the page or their soul on the page. You're not going to get that from a computer.
You obviously know about Star Trek and all that. When do you think that we will finally get a black captain of the U.S. Enterprise?
I don't think we're going to get that as related to Star Trek, because when it comes down to a lot of these fantasy creations made by white creators, they don't really like putting black people in charge of them. And you have these racist fanboys. They don't like the idea of a black person being over their stuff. So when you saw how upset they were getting over Finn in Star Wars, when they thought he was going to be the Jedi, I mean, one guy practically almost killed himself over this, and they were going berserk over it. So and as I see it, I wouldn't really even want to be the captain over a white ship like the Enterprise, or be a part of somebody else's creation. I would like to rather go out here and make my own creations, like I do with the Isis series and the Eastern series, and John Haynes. I would rather just make my own stuff, because with my own stuff, I can give people the true black experience, make commentary on black culture, and present fantasy from a black perspective. I would rather give you something unique and distinct from the black perspective and the black experience than try to be somebody's black character in a white property.
It's like you're back on a plantation as a slave.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have any place where we can see some of, I can pull up maybe for the TV viewers right now, some of the artistic work? I mean, if I go to your YouTube channel, do you have a community tab where you do, where you post any of the artwork? I got artwork from John Haynes, Dark Succubus. I see what you're saying. His vibe. I
post ads from many of my books on many of my videos as throughout the year. So,
well, I'm on your community tab on your YouTube channel. So I'm scrolling. You continue to talk. I'm just scrolling as you're talking, so people can see.
And I also have a blog that I do, Shawn James Black Freelance Writer, where I do a lot of promotion of my work there. And I have a showcase of my work there. I have sample chapters there. And I usually, in between the YouTube channel and my blog, that's how I let people know about my books. I let them know about the concept art for upcoming covers. I put up sample chapters. And I give people that look into my work and so they can see what I have to offer.
Hold on, brother. For the TV viewers, I got a picture right now of a blonde chick in a bikini with dollars in a bag below her, and she's holding the girl over her head. Maybe ISIS herself, because she has an ankh on her neck. Is the blonde chick a villain?
That's ISIS on All That Glitters cover. She's getting roughed up in this bank robbery. That's the book where ISIS is taking on this bikini-clad bank robber, Goldenshine. And in that story, I wanted to make a commentary on how these white women, how they try to get attention on social media, and they try to pull these stunts. And I wanted to also tie it into the old school comic book bank robber story to show that you can make that story fresh for the 21st century, because a lot of comic book pros, they believe you can't make that story fresh. But with this book, I wanted to make it fresh.
Righteous. I got a question from the chat room. As a writer, what did the lady, Sophia Stewart, or so that wrote The Matrix do wrong?
Well, the mistake that she made was trusting people in Hollywood. That was the mistake she made, because when it comes down to people in Hollywood, they will steal your ideas and they will rewrite them. And I talked about this in my screenplay book, All About Maryland. And that book was like it was like one part screenplay, but one part a commentary on Hollywood. And when it comes down to people in Hollywood, they will steal your ideas. They will take your ideas and rewrite them. And that's why we don't share them with anybody without getting a release from them.
The legal binding contract saying that they won't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And you know what? And this is to all, because I know a lot of brothers and young sisters that like to draw and write. How important, I know it's basically reiterating what you just said, but how important is it to them to keep that secret? Because, you know, when you draw something really cool, first thing you want to do is go out and tell everybody about it. What should they do?
Well, the one thing you have to understand is when you're dealing with people, make sure you get things in writing. That's why I always deal with people in emails and texts, so I can have a paper trail so that whenever I deal with them, it's never oral. And that's one of the big mistakes people make with the entertainment industry, is doing things orally. Everything that you put down is copyrighted from the minute you put it down. And the whole thing is you got to make sure that you have a release from them saying that, okay, they are looking at your work and you're giving them permission to look at your work, and that there is communication between you. And that way your work is protected.
Wow. See, this is the information that we really need. I mean, I hate to say it, almost like a weekend seminar, because I know a lot of brothers and sisters get crushed when they come out with a great ideal. Someone steals it and they can't prove that it was really their ideal.
Well, that's why you get a copyright as well. I mean, one of the things I did when I was doing All About Maryland back in 2008, when I first got my civil service job, is I registered that script to WGA. And then before I published it in 2009 as a paperback and started submitting it to screenplay contest, is I registered it with the U.S. Copyright Office. And registering it with WGA and the Copyright Office gives you protection when you're querying out your screenplay. And it also gives you protection in that you have records that show that it belongs to you and you own it.
Yes. And you know, I hate to be so drab, but without good business sense and practice, I'm telling you, Al, you're doomed to be exploited. You're doomed to be exploited. No one's out here in the media world that is your buddy. I'm telling you that. So please don't go out there just trusting. Do like Brother James says. Get it copyrighted. Get a ISBN number for it, and have it registered in the Library of Congress or what department actually handles the Library of Congress, and make sure you cover your bases. So then that way, if they do steal your stuff, you can come back and sue and get your proper compensation. And compensation is a legal term for money. So if we could do one thing tonight to build something greater than ourselves, what do you think we could do, Brother James?
What do you want to build? That's the whole thing. I really want to build up a larger customer base for my books, and I really want to try to raise funds for my ISIS graphic novel that I'm trying to do, because that story you saw, All That Glitters, I'm trying to turn that into an actual comic book, and I'm trying to raise funds to do that. And I'm also trying to increase the sales on my books in the 2019 catalog and the rest of the books in my catalog. That's what I've been trying. That's my goal.
Well, then that's what we're doing then. You know, come on, y'all. You know, I need you guys to share this video. Let's get the word out. Let's saturate everything. Yes, I'm advocating spamming. Spamming's good. You know, World War II spam fed a lot of people, and it's feeding people today. You know, so please share it. In all seriousness, though, please share this video. And more importantly, if you have any extra money, once again, do not spend your bill money, your entertainment money. This is strictly extra. If you can give to the brother or the sister, then do it. Then do it, please. I implore you. You know, I hate to sound like a telethon, but it really is that serious. If we don't come together, if we do not support brothers and sisters out here doing things, then when we have no comments to look to, we have no image that's proper of us, then we have no one else to blame but ourselves, because we're unable or we're unwilling to fund our own liberation. Remember this. You know, I mean, once again, if we could take the image that's being portrayed of us as being dope dealers, ignorant, being amoral, being weak, pathetic, weaselly, if we can take those images and crush them with strong images of us being honorable, being loyal, being faithful, being true to ourselves and our community, and uplifting our brothers and sisters when they're down, not a hand out, but a straight up body grab and pull them out of the quicksand that's choking them out. If we can't do that, then unfortunately we deserve the oven. We deserve to be put on trains systematically, rode down the damn tracks, and exterminated, because a rational mind, I'm just telling you, a rational mind is thinking about that. What are we going to do with these people? Brother, let me ask you real quick. What is your opinion on reparations?
Well, I believe that those black people who were descendants of slaves, do deserve reparations. They do deserve fair compensation for the years of past discrimination, present discrimination, and the racism people have suffered over the generations. So black people do deserve reparations and fair compensation, because they were not given an equal opportunity, and they still don't get an equal opportunity to this day. I mean, I remember going for civil service jobs and running into discrimination. So I know that, yeah, we deserve reparations and fair compensation.
Now, how will we determine who's ADOS and who's not?
Well, I believe we can find a way to determine that, because when it comes down to black people who were American descendants of slaves, these were American citizens, and I believe that American citizens should be the first. Black American citizens should be the first in line to get that type of reparation or compensation. Okay,
so now a hypothetical, very imaginative mind. We did a DNA panel. We passed a law. Everybody in the United States have to submit this DNA panel for census purposes or whatever. And we determined that, oh my God, lo and behold, all these like white folks, they look white, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes, have black genes that were slave genes. Do they get reparations?
I don't know about that. I mean, they would be trying to manipulate the system. But
I mean, it'd be like Elizabeth Warren, but for real. I'm a Cherokee, you know, but she's not. But this would be like, I'm not a nigger. Oh, excuse that N word, but then to find out, yep, genetically you are. So what would we do in those situations? I guess that's the conundrum that we're kind of at. You know, or what if the one drop rule? One of Chatter's brother Chris, the one drop rule. Yeah, they'll be trying to one drop rule then, I'm sure, you know, to get that check. But one thing I would say, and I know a lot of people have their opinions on reparations, but I would say it like this. For one, As a politician, every Black Caucus member should be voted out because as a politician, whether they're for it or not, it is for their constituency collectively. They should have been like, wouldn't it have been better if we can view Black folks not as economic despots, but economic potential prosperity? Because the reality is you put money in the hands of Black people, it's going to go almost immediately, because of the way most folks are trained with money, immediately right into business. So therefore, the Black population will become a ultra consumer base, almost hyper consumer base in its original form. But we will have the money to back up our economic desires and lusts. Now, hopefully, over time, that would be tamped down into fiscal, monetary, using your money right. But, I can see in the beginning, like Dick Gregory said, when he got his first $1 million, he had to treat himself. And he suggested that everybody treats themselves to get out of that slave mindset, because that's kind of the only way to get out of it. Not consumerism is the answer, because we're consumers now, and it's not really helpful. But I think it is a part of a proper reconditioning or rehabilitation, because, yes, a lot of us have suffered PSD or PSTD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Reason why? Because they actually saw someone get their brains blown out, or they were actually an underage girl forced into prostitution, or they saw their mom and dad cooking up dope on the stove there and selling it to the neighbors. A lot of that stuff is not cool. It looks cool in movies, but it's really crap in real life. Especially when after the things that these people do either gets them diseased, gets them in prison, or last but not least, gets them in the grave. And when they go in the grave, unfortunately, they really are ripped off. It's not rest in peace. No, they're ripped off because they probably died in the wrong spiritual format. It's very important to die properly, y'all. I cannot really stress that enough. And for those who are atheists or non-spiritual, well, all I can say is best of luck to you, bud. I don't know, I'm not going to discourage you or belittle you, but, from what my understanding is in the life to come, unless you have some sort of spiritual, I guess, policy of sorts, it's going to probably be pretty rough for you. So that being said, when we talk about the MGTOW thing once again, do you see that it could possibly be used as a weapon to abuse or sexualize women?
No, not at all, because when it comes down to men who are going their own way, they have no interest usually in women. They're usually about focusing on themselves. They have no real interest in getting the attention of women or getting the approval of women. It's all about focusing on self, focusing on self-actualization, and focusing on your personal goals that you want to achieve in life. Usually, most of the men who are going their own way, they are usually about things about putting themselves first. They're not about exploiting women. Usually, what you see are these people that they call fake MGTOWs. These are former pickup artists. That's their game, about trying to get the attention of women and the approval of women. But true to the game, men like myself who have been going their own way for over 25 years, we have no time for focusing on getting the attention or the approval of women. What we want to do is build our businesses, build our platforms, and, take care of business as related to our lives, and focus on those goals that will allow us to find the purpose that God has for us and actualize that purpose in our lives.
Well, I mean, it almost sounds noble when you put it that way. It's a spiritual path, walking in faith for a better you, which in essence, once you find your true helpmate or companion or partner, she will totally complement your program because you actually have a program.
Yes.
That's noble, but I guess I must have been watching the fake MGTOWs, because what I was deducing from it was it was more or less just a way to kind of screw chicks and not have no love there. You know what I'm saying? Just like, yeah, you know, you're going to do this, chick, and once you do this, I'm going to bounce you out the house, and the next broad's coming in, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what the vibe I was getting. And then there was the other vibe where it was really kind of weird. Like, it was almost as these men hated women. Like, you know, the chick divorced me. I lost my home, lost my truck, lost every damn thing. And the next thing you know, this guy's claiming to be red pill or whatever, and it's this vile, bitter, venomous stuff that he's always saying. But I'm not detecting none of that from your interpretation of MGTOW.
Well, as a guy who's been living this lifestyle for over 25 years, I can tell you I have no hatred of women. I have no dislike of women. I just understand that when it comes down to a lot of females, they have their way of living. And if I choose to get involved with certain women, then I have to deal with what they have to deal with. But if I choose not to deal with them, then that's on me, because what I really want to do is follow God's path for my life. And I really want to go God's way. So for me, going my own way is going God's way and trying to figure out what purpose he has for me in this life and doing his work in this life so that I can go back to him. And when I do pass, be able to say that I did the work that he asked me to do on this earth. So a lot of people think that men going their own way is about picking up women or being a misogynist, but that's not what it is at all. You have to really understand that it's all about a man learning about how to focus on putting himself first and actualizing his potential as a man. And guys like Sandman, he really understands that going their own way philosophy. His channel is very good about it. Church Leading Monkey, he talks about things that's related to gynocentrism. And you have to really take the information you get from many of these channels and really break it apart to find what the purpose of it is. Some guys, yes, they are hurt about the divorces they've had or the relationships that have failed, but they have wisdom that they can give guys in between the lines of many of their videos. And you have to learn how to process that information so that you can get to the core of the information. Now, when it comes down to me going my own way, again, I follow the living God and I follow the Bible, which is all about men learning how to put themselves first and learning how to follow God and become the type of man God wants them to be.
Right. I got a question for the chat room. Can you please ask him his opinion on the attack on freedom of speech?
Well, I believe that it's really wrong. Now, when it comes down to social media, there have been efforts to try to censor people because they don't like the narratives that are being told, because those narratives counter Madison Avenue in Hollywood. But as a publisher, I believe in the First Amendment. I believe everybody has the right to freedom of speech. And when it comes down to freedom of speech, it's about protecting the speech we don't like so those people can have a platform, and we can have a platform where we have the point and the counterpoint. And Americans can then make a decision objectively about the information presented to them. So we do need freedom of speech in order for America to function, because without that counterpoint, we don't really have a balanced perspective of the world, and we don't have a balanced perspective where people can see the bigger picture regarding the country.
Well, you know, it's almost as if the country or as the government has flip-flopped. Because when I was coming up, it seemed like it was the liberals. You know, we want freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. And now it seems like since the liberals kind of took over, at least in the legislative branch, it's like anything, like heaven forbid you say anything negative about a homosexuals, who are the true minorities now. Because the reason why I said that before anyone says anything, if I was in California, I'm walking down the street, a white male could call me the N-word. My God, that's fuck it. The white kid called me a damn nigger, not nigga, but nigger. And I go around and I was like, well, fuck you, fag. I'm going to jail because I called him a fag. And if I hit him, I'm going to jail for a hate crime. So there you go. That shows you that even on a social level, we have been replaced. We should be the ones holding damn candles at night, talking about we won't be replaced. We won't be replaced by the immigrants. We won't be replaced by homosexuals. And we certainly are not going to be replaced by, excuse me. I don't want to rant. This is not the time for one of my rants. Sorry about that, Brother James. I just want to say that I feel that we have given up ground, like as if the black man and woman have been used for shields to smash through the lines of the conservatives, and then the rest of the people just tramples over our backs to get to the promised land, and we're just left busted up, bleeding in the gutters.
Well, the whole thing is they use the black community as a springboard, and then after they use the black community, they then abandon the black community.
Exactly.
So use it to get rights and get benefits, and then it's like affirmative action. It was supposed to help black men, but then white women got all the benefits of affirmative action,
now
and black women.
Now gay white men are at the top of the firm. A homosexual white male is considered and classified as a minority and gets special treatment. All right?
Yeah.
I've been in the workplace. I had to deal with racists here in Missouri, racist, and that's with an R, gay white males. All right?
Yep.
Now, if you want to say, oh, these people are all love, I'm here to tell you they're not. They hate you. They hate you just like anybody else would hate you, except for they're going to pretend like you're their buddy. All right? That's the only difference. The straight racist at least has the decency to look you in the fucking eye and say, hey, I don't like you, and get the fuck away from me. All right? Well, that's a decent thing to do. Instead of being your buddy, oh, come on, Brother James, come on over here and have dinner with us. Next thing you know, they slip something in your drink, and you're on some sort of flippant video.
That's why you can't really trust the fox, which is a liberal. He'll make a fool out of you. He pretends to be your friend, but he's actually your enemy.
Exactly. Exactly. The enemy that will slither into your home and eat bread with you. Try to walk over and drink a beer and work on a car. Well, no, they don't do manual labor now, do they? Well, they don't. I'm just trying to think what kind of slimy things they do. Not that I have anything against liberals, okay? Other than the fact that I don't agree with their overall anti-human, anti-God, anti-family agenda, all right? Because you have to admit they're typically pro-abortion, they're typically atheists, and they're also typically, we don't need to get married. Let's just, if they're even sleeping with a chick, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. But, we don't need to get married. Let's just prosecute, people of opposite sex sharing same living quarters, forever. Used to be called common law, but we don't even use those terminologies anymore. So do you think marriage in itself is an outdated notion, or do you think there's still virtue in that?
I believe that there is virtue in marriage. I mean, God made it as an institution, and what God makes is perfect. The problem is that we have men who want to create covert contracts, and they don't want to commit to marriage. So they create these covert contracts, like with this whole living together thing. And this is something I went in depth in my ebook, like 70% of black women are single. What these guys want to do is make this contract where they live together. And what happens is when things don't work out, then they want to break things up, and that's what leads to a disaster.
Wow. So, okay, I'm going to use common language for the common folks on my show. What he's basically saying is, guy sweet talk a girl into becoming his personal nut bucket for a finite a period of time, usually 6 months or so. Once the nut bucket's full, he's like mid-eastern or medieval. He just throws the damn bucket out the window and grabs a new nut bucket because that's all he's using it for. If a man's not willing to die for you, if he's not willing to be there when the baby's crying and needing milk and diaper changes, if he's not willing to lay down his life whenever some asswipe comes up to the door or out there messing with the car, then you, as a woman, should not let him come in between your legs. Period. Period.
Basically, that kind of guy is a coward.
Yes, he's a coward. But he's the pretty boy, Brother James. What are you talking about? He gets his hair and nails done. He don't have no calluses on his fucking hands. They're soft as butter. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like, that guy is like the hysterical version of us, brother. I mean, that guy is, when you're walking down the street, there's this another womanizing drunk, whatever, and that's so far from the truth. We are so diverse as a people. We got conservatives, we have liberals, we have homosexuals, we have straight, we have it all. But some unknown reason, Maybe it's nature, maybe it's propaganda, but you know, we're all like typecast as one type of individual until you have to show the world that you're not.
And that's sad.
That's horrible in 2019 that we're here at this point. I mean, in your professional life, and be honest, you don't have to say no companies, but in your professional adult working life, have you ever experienced melanization discrimination? Meaning that if
yes, I have.
How did that make you feel as a human being?
It made me feel bad. I mean, I lost 2 jobs as a result of it. And the whole thing is that you have people discriminating against you just because you're either a black man or you're a black man. It doesn't fit their narrative, because when it comes down to many of these racists, they want black people who fit into their smooth world. They want black people who fit their stereotypes and make them feel comfortable.
Yes. They're really handy with, the old shoe shot. Yow's the boss. He'll be juking and jiving in front of old boy. But then when he comes around you, he'll look at you with such disdain because you're not playing the game like him.
I ran into that with a black woman at the library I was working with. She was all bojangling for these white men, but then when she's around me, she expressed nothing but contempt.
Like venom, like she had nothing but poison. Every thing she said to you was a little cut, like a psychological knife cut. How come you're not like?
Yeah, that's what I ran into.
Man,
and the whole thing was she presented herself as this pro-black Afrocentric with natural hair, but she really was basically a mammy looking for approval from white folks.
That's and if you was to tell her that. Now, hold on. This is Brother T. Will. What can you do if we don't own anything?
Well, we can always make efforts to build our own. I mean, just the whole thing is we have to support our own in building those foundations. But we do own things. The whole thing is black folks don't understand what they own, and they don't understand their power. And the problem is we don't want to flex our muscles because a lot of us are scared. But we've always had power. We just have to be able to just start using it.
Wow. I mean, but how do we? I hate to sound defeated, okay? Please don't take this the wrong way. But how can we begin to do something positive? I'm not talking about us individually. I'm talking about collectively as a group. When so many of us are so fundamentally hurt and damaged.
Well, we have to work with those who want to work with us. And that's the whole thing, though. The ones that want to go on a positive road, they're going to have to learn how to work together. Now, that's something I had to learn way back in high school when I was with some toxic people at Park West. I had to leave those people alone. And it may be a lonely road for a long time, but eventually you're going to find those positive people. And I didn't really start finding positive people until I started going on the YouTube. And then I found a lot of the positive brothers out there and the positive sisters out there.
Now, have you ever run into any of, the lady like at the library? Have you seen her around town maybe, or run into her since then to see like has she?
I haven't seen her in 10 years.
So she might not even be on this earth anymore. I just wonder if she got any better, or did she just continue down the path?
She was probably still the same because she got another black woman taken out of the job a couple of months after I left. About a couple of months or a year after I left, another person wound up getting let go. And it really was about her controlling her fiefdom and them having their world where they could have their world smooth. They didn't want to deal with the idea that the world was changing.
So wait, is this like she only wanted to be the only black chick up in this, or only black person?
Well, there were 2 black mammies at this job, and one of them retired, and I was going to replace her. She had been there for 30 years, and this other woman had been there for about 9 years. And the whole thing is they just couldn't deal with the idea of their smooth world changing. They couldn't deal with the idea that, people retire, people move on, and that new people are going to come in, and their approaches to the world are going to be different. Yes. And when it comes down to all these black folks, they want to be the H-nice or the head Negro in charge, and they get caught up in their power. They're not thinking about the next generation. Again, these baby boomers, they never think about the next generation or the next man. It's always about them and what they want.
Right. That mindset is killing us. It's like a weed, and it's straight up strangling our collective tree. The me, mine, what can I get? I'm not going to even do nothing. There's nothing in it for me. Why do you think we have no sense of sacrifice?
Well, I think it's just that generation, because when it comes down to Gen X and Gen Y and Gen Z, I see that they're looking out for the next generation. Like what I'm doing right now, stories I'm writing and the videos I produce, I'm always thinking about the next generation and what they're going to learn and the legacy that's going to be left for them, and trying to teach and prepare them for the world out there. That's why I do books like Man Crisis and Stop Simping, because I see so many young guys out here who didn't get that knowledge that they were supposed to get from their fathers or older brothers or other men in the community. And I want to try to give them that knowledge so that they won't wind up making mistakes that destroy their life.
Right. I mean, would you say that if you could just save one guy from making that fatal mistake at 18, knocking up little Sally, maybe she's 17 or young, or 17, 16. What exactly would you tell a boy to not, what would you exactly tell him in that situation before he engages with Sally?
Well, I ran in that situation myself, and thank God, God pulled me away from that. This peer pressure where it was all about having a girlfriend and defining my manhood through another woman, or defining my manhood through a woman. And God came to me when I was 15 years old. He told me I wasn't ready. And I would tell a young man, look, you're not ready for no relationship yet. You need to be focused on your education. You need to be focused on building up your life, getting these good grades, and focused on getting your education. And then, well, if you want to do trade school, you do trade school. If you want to start a business or a side hustle, or you go out here and you get yourself some work experience. Don't worry about these women. Again, when you take the lead in your life, the right woman will follow you.
Wow. Yes, that is true. That is true. Because there's no woman, I mean, just for 1 second, guys, there's no woman out there that wants to be with a weak, sniveling worm of a man. No backbone, never stands up, never, you go on and do this, yes, ma'am, and it's all scuttling off. They don't want that. And why would anybody want that? You know what I mean? It's like, but that's what they, you see these shows on what's that damn channel? That little Lifetime TV, all right? You see those shows on that. Every man on there is so picture perfect, cut out, always has the right gift, never gets upset. That's not reality.
That's what's messing up a lot of our women. They thinking that they can get that guy, but that's a fantasy. That's a scripted story.
Right. That'd be like me, straight up, brother. That'd be like me saying, even though I'm married, in this scenario, I'm single or whatever. That'd be like me saying, oh my God, I want to marry Isis. She is so hot. She looks so beautiful. She's a cartoon character, dude. That doesn't matter. She's out there somewhere. I just got to find. And that's what these chicks are on this mission to get something that, for one, I hate to say this, but who really deserves to live that type of life anyhow? Who is that perfect that should live that type of life anyhow? Void of any spirit, because don't forget, on those TV shows, God never saves the day. It's always some dude or some chick, all right? I enjoy knowing that God intervenes in my life from time to time with his spiritual power and sets me back on the right track. I think I would truly be lost, Brother James, if I didn't have that. I mean, just aimlessly wandering the wilderness of this world without a clue. But the thing is, if we get to that part to where I want to serve God, I want to be his servant, instead of being, oh, I am God, or I want servants below me, because I truly believe this thought here. None are free unless all are free.
And the only way to be free, as I see, is through Jesus Christ. So,
well, yeah, I mean, free spiritually, but I'm talking about free politically as well.
Yeah.
In other words, what my state's doing with the abortion. All right, I think as of today, the last abortion clinic was closed here in the state of Missouri. Me myself, I am staunchly pro-life. I believe in my babies, as long as nothing happens naturally, coming to this world. All right? But I don't have enough hubris in me to be this chick, you know, no matter what situation she's coming, because I don't know her situation. You know, this is not what she can do with her life. That's her life. That's her body. All right. With that being said, this is my life and this is my body. I don't want them telling me I have to eat at a certain time or any of that. I want to know that we have rights in a republic situation that no senator can take away, no judge can take away, and no president or governor can take away. Because these are inalienable rights written on paper and acknowledged by all to be true. Now, what is your opinion on the Pledge of Allegiance, by the way?
Well, I think it's something that kids need to be taught again. I remember when I was in school, we had the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. And what that does is teaches you about the nation. It teaches you about respect for the nation. And it teaches you about how to appreciate the great nation that you're in. And it was something we did all the way through my elementary school from K to 6. We would play the national anthem, and then we would pledge the allegiance to the United States flag. And again, it's showing respect for your country and teaching people respect for their country at an early age.
Now, do you look at it, obviously, after that, you wouldn't look at it as a form of indoctrination, saying that no matter what your country does, you're behind it 100%?
Not really. I just see it as you're showing respect for your country and teaching kids to appreciate where they live. I mean, other countries, they show respect for their country, and only in America is where people are taught to disrespect their flag and disrespect their culture, and that's why we have so many problems we have, because nobody's been taught to appreciate America. People want the right to freedom in America, but they don't want responsibility to be a part of the country or commit to the country.
So do you think that within, like you just said, freedom, within the vast, let's say, expanse of what freedom could potentially mean, there is no spot for, let's just say, a American citizen, but an unpatriotic one?
Well, when it comes down to America, people have the right to express themselves, and if they want to be unpatriotic, that's on them. But and it's about protecting the speech we don't like, and we do need that counterpoint in order for us to appreciate the freedoms we have. And that's something I'm not seeing on social media these days, which is becoming like the black community, like this fascist state. Oh, and yeah. I talked about that in Spellbound, about the fascist state of the black community, how everybody wants everything to be one way and everybody to conform to one standard. And that's what I'm seeing right now with America. Some people want to make America one way, but the whole thing is, what was great about America is that we get these counterpoints and different viewpoints and different ideas. And that is how we get the great America we have right now. Excuse me.
I have a question from the chat room from Brother Will. T. Will. How can a Christian believe in pledging to anything other than Jesus?
Well, when it comes down to the Bible, again, we are putting God first. And in the Bible itself, it says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to support the governors and submit to the authority of the governors in Paul and the Corinthians. So it's about showing respect for the country. You are putting God first because you are following God's commandment. Because if Jesus said, give Caesar his tribute, then if Jesus is respecting Caesar's authority as a governor, then we need to respect the authority of the government we're in. And this is what God is doing, and this is what he wants men to follow as well. He wants us to be like Christ. And if Christ could respect Caesar's Rome, then Americans can respect America.
So if we turn back the clock and let's say that both of us are sitting in a beer hall in Berlin, Germany, in 1927. Once the new regime of Adolf and the National Socialist Party comes in and they become the official governments, we're supposed to respect them as well?
Well, if people voted for it, that's sadly what we have to respect. If you live in that country and you want to be a part of that country, then you have to deal with that. I mean, like right now, a lot of Americans don't understand that under our Constitution.
Hello?
Not to be the president. I'm here.
Okay, I thought the NSA cut us off. Okay, continue.
I mean, people voted for Donald Trump, so you're going to have to acknowledge that. I mean, if the first three words of our Constitution are "We the people," And the whole thing is we, the people, have to take responsibility for our choices. And this is what I see with America as a problem, is no one wants to take responsibility for that 2016 election. Everybody wants to say that it was Russians. And no, it was we, the people, who voted for this. When I look at the demographics and I see 60% of white women and 90% of white men, 30% of Hispanic men, 30% of Hispanic women voting for Trump, that shows that there wasn't a majority of Americans who voted for this president. So they have to acknowledge the decision they made, just like the Germans have had to acknowledge over the last 80 years, the decision to elect Adolf Hitler back in those days. And again, that's the choice that they made, because it was all about the people. And the whole thing with Americans is they don't want to take responsibility for the choices they make. And a lot of them take the choice that they have to vote for granted.
Now, do you support the nation of Israel?
I don't really know too much about them, so I can't really say.
Okay. I mean, because it kind of goes back to the reparation issue. I mean, it's kind of funny that after World War II, the United States, in many ways, pays reparations to the nation of Israel as well, even though we liberated them from the concentration camps.
Well, if we could pay them, we could pay black people. So,
no, we can't.
Pay it to the Japanese.
You ask too much, sir. You ask too much. No, like Bernie Sanders says, the blacks will get no reparations. No, you know, that's pretty much where we're at, and it's sad because we could be such a viable economic base if only given the resources. But like Judge said, if you're sitting there waiting for someone to give you something, you're probably going to be waiting for an extremely long time.
Well, that's true. But when it comes down to white supremacists, they don't want to compete with black men. I talked about this in many live streams. They don't like the idea of competition. That's why they want to undermine the black economy, because they know if the black economy becomes strong, you have two competing economies. And I talked about this also in the ebook, why 70% of black women are single. And that's why they just try to destroy the black economy and create the welfare state so that black women would be dependent on the white economy and not build the black economy after the civil rights movement gave black people their rights. They wanted to have people dependent on the white economy and the welfare state. And that's why they didn't want the black economy, because if you had a strong black economy, then we would have black TV stations, black radio stations, black manufacturing, and that would be direct competition to many of the white institutions. And with the way black people do things, like with Michael Jordan in basketball and black men in the NFL, that would mean black dominance.
And I can see where that would be quite scary for, quote unquote, the powers that be. You know, because like you said earlier, people don't like change. And I guarantee you they wouldn't like that type of change.
No, they wouldn't, because that means that a lot of people grow up comfortable, and having to deal with that type of change makes them uncomfortable. I mean, it means you actually have to step up and compete. And a lot of people, they're used to being comfortable and just coasting for 25, 30 years. And that means they have to actually get up off their butt and work, and they don't want to do that.
But think about it now. We analyze a couple of critical thoughts here. One, the black folks in the United States is basically a problem to a certain element of the country, say like 70% or so. Like any person, if you feel threatened in your home, if you, like, say that you're in your house right now and you see a snake or something that shouldn't be there in there, you're going to try to eradicate it, would you not?
Well, that's what an insecure person would do. I mean, when it comes down to these guys, they're insecure because they're not able to compete. And this has been something we've had to deal with ever since the Civil War, because when it came down to the aftermath of the Civil War, certain black people, they had skilled trades, certain people had skills, and these people were able to build businesses. And when it came down to those white people who couldn't, that's why we got the Klan, and that's why we got the terrorism we got, and that destroyed towns like Black Wall Street and towns like Rosewood, because these white people couldn't compete, and then they used this white woman as an excuse to go in those towns to terrorize and destroy that town. And it really was about them not having the ability to go out here and build their own. And they were mad at black people when they really should have been mad at the wealthy, who were the ones who actually were the catalysts for the Civil War, and abandoned them.
Right. So how did we get from that point that you just said, literally, brother, being able to take a barren piece of land with our own hands, build something nice, respectable, and prosperous? How did we get from that state to this state to where you hand a boy a damn hammer, he'll look at you like you're crazy?
Well, we got that to that way because of what happened with the aftermath of the civil rights movement, where it was all about integration, and a lot of our black women walking away from the black fathers who would have taught those boys those male life skills and had them indoctrinated into this welfare state, which taught them this culture of dependence. And because these boys have been taught dependence, they don't know how to build anything. All they know how to do is rely on somebody else or look to somebody else to get their needs met instead of learning how to go out and get their own. Because one of the things that destroyed the black community was taking the black father out of the home, the man who would have taught a boy discipline, taught a boy structure, and would have been a model for manhood and taught him male life skills and survival skills. That boy never got that because he grew up in this welfare household, and his models for manhood were easily dope dealers, thugs, gangbangers, or they usually got their model for manhood from other women. So they didn't get that model to go out here and learn how to build. And the same thing for the girls. They never got a model of true womanhood because the mother trying to do things on her own. So that woman never got a model for how to be a woman, nor did she get a model on how to have a relationship with a man or a model of a man that would show her the type of man like her father who would be able to be husband material.
Right. So it's more than just one. It's almost like a whole, basically, system was focused at us, implemented in stages, and we are quite literally seeing, and in some cases, living the results.
Yes, we are.
Wow, that's just tragic. You know, we got to end on a positive note, on a hope. Do you foresee a time where humanity comes together as one family?
I can see that coming, and yeah, I can see it coming. I see more and more a lot of black people starting to move past the era of the feminist movement, and one of the things they want to do is stop that unity from forming, and that's why they don't really want to see black people come together on places like the internet, because what's happening now at the internet is a lot of the misinformation that came out from people like Alice Walker and folks like The Color Purple. A lot of that stuff is being refuted by people out here, and people are learning because black men are now taking control of their own narrative online, and they're presenting their stories online to people, and we're getting a different perspective. And I see the internet as one of those things that's bringing black men together, and it's changing the story and bringing people more closer to unity. And what's happening now is, because the powers that be see black people coming together, that's why they want to try to get all these channels taken down. That's why they want to get people censored, because they want to get people back on the plantation. But what's happened is the internet has made it where people have left. And what's happened is, because the internet is fluid, people go from one place to another. They migrate from one platform to another, because you can get rid of black people on YouTube, but they'll just go to BitChute, or they'll go to Vimeo, or they'll go to Dailymotion. They'll go where the information is, and they'll go follow the people making the information. And some will go to places like Black Junction, which is a black-owned platform, or they'll go to places like Black Avenger. You cannot stop the information now, because in an information age, people want information. And if you can't get it on one platform, you just go to another.
There it is. I like that. Don't be basically boxed in. Oh, I just Facebook. I just Twitter. The information's out there. Just think outside the box, go around it, and get the info, because without knowledge, you are guaranteed to die. And it would be a horrible and cruel.
The box has been shattered, as I see it, because when it comes down to, when I was growing up, we only had 3 channels. You had CBS, NBC, and ABC, and they controlled how people thought, and a couple of independent channels. But these days, we have the internet. You can just go anywhere, and the whole thing is people limit themselves to Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, but there are just so many other platforms with information out there, and it's out there for you. I mean, you can get literally a doctorate level education for free. If you just go to the right websites, you can get the education of a guy with a doctorate.
Right. and actually learn. You know, this is what I'm saying. I almost envision a time where we can do away with these public schools, give everyone a modem and a computer, and they will all have online courses.
I mean, that's how I learned for the last 10 years, and I learned so much, and that's how I learned about men's issues and was able to go out here. And as I learned, I then started realizing how much knowledge I had, and I started putting in the books like Stop Simping and the men's issues books. And these days, I continue to put that knowledge in other books like my fantasy, like the ISIS series and the East-Team series and the John Haynes series. I take everything that I learn and I put it in books so that people can learn from it too.
Awesome. You know, as a artist, you know, I used to draw, play the bass guitar. It's so rewarding to see, because I know how much effort it takes to develop a piece of work. To see you so passionate and basically, dare I say, like, you just champion the cause by putting out this alternative narrative in print and in comic book form. Thank you, sir, for doing that.
Well, thank you very much. I also do fantasy stories. Usually I just do fantasy stories. I'm trying to get my first comic published, though.
Well, when you do, I want to have you back on the show for the grand kickoff.
Okay, I'm still trying to raise funds for that through Patreon. I figured if I had 10,000 subs, everybody puts in $1, I can get the money to get this ISIS graphic novel launched and available to everyone. I was going to give it away free after that, and digital format, because for everybody who puts in $1 for it, and we could get this done in about 2 months, get the funds for it, and then I can get ready to launch it because the script is already ready. I just need the money to pay the artist to do it, and the colorist and the letterer.
Right. Hey, do your Patreon one more time for the souls that managed to stay with us all this time. And
my Patreon is called Shawn James Black Freelance Writer, and my PayPal is sjsdirectamerica@gmail.com.
Gotcha. And I will. I'm going to go to one of your videos. I'm going to pull those links off, and I'm going to put them on the description on this video as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Hey, like I said, I am here to support everybody with the righteous cause. You know, I mean, I've reached out to so many people. I'm going to continue to reach out to people and bring people on, like yourself and others, to show everyone that we do have our own platform in many regards. We do have spaces where we can go and talk about what we want to talk about, whether it be UFOs and military, politics, relationship, spirituality, love, all of it. These are the issues that we want to hear and talk about. I don't want to hear about no Jesse Smollett. I don't want to hear about no Kanye West or none of that, because that's all bogus tabloid stuff. I want to hear tangible stuff, and a lot of stuff that we talked about here tonight, it will be tangible to people if they apply these mental thoughts in their real life.
Yeah, I like making substantive content myself, and that's usually what I do when I'm doing my live streams or I'm making videos. I want to do the substantive content that enriches people's lives, not focus really too much on the fluff. And that's what I do with the African-American fantasy videos or the Black Goth videos, or even videos where I talk about screenwriting and screenplay rights or talk about writing.
You know, I'll ask you right now while I got you on the phone. If I can work it to where I can get Sophia Stewart to do a show, because you two are both writers. Yeah, actually, the only two writers I know, really. Well, I know a couple more, but would you be up for maybe doing a combo show with Sophia?
I would be glad to do that. I'd be eager to do that.
Awesome. Well, I'll try to set that up, and I'll email you, and I'll get back, and definitely I'm going to keep your number, and call you from time to time.
All right, that's cool.
All right, man, I appreciate it. Yes, everybody, Shawn James, author, and actually a true humanitarian, because he's putting positive images of us in print. Yes. Well, everybody, that will conclude tonight's show. Do you have anything else to say, brother?
Just that the 3 books of the SJS Direct 2019 catalog are now available on Amazon.com, and I would really appreciate it if you supported Isis All That Glitters, Eastine Goddess of, and John Haynes Dark Succubus, and my book, The Man Crisis, which everybody loves, and it's a critically acclaimed nonfiction book. You can pick all those books up on Amazon.com, along with the other books in the SJS Direct catalog. I really appreciate that support. So that's the last thing I have to say for you tonight. And I want to thank you for having me on the show. I really enjoyed being here. Really enjoyed sharing knowledge with you and sharing my knowledge with everybody out there. And again, I thank everybody for having me on the show.
Man, I thank you, brother. Seriously, I hate to say this, but we need to take a blood sample of you and clone you. Have an army of writers out there so we can offset what Disney and other studios are doing. I mean, I look at some of the old studio products. It's just abominable.
Yeah. When I was doing a book called Easting the Sands of Time, I actually thought about doing my own Disney princess story, and I wanted to do a Disney princess story from a Black perspective. And that was a very popular story with readers because I decided to do the Disney princess that, what was it called? Princess and the Frog was supposed to do. They wanted to give us a Black princess, but then they didn't give us a Black prince. But with Sands of Time, I give you that Black princess in ancient Egypt, which were Egyptians were Black. And I give you a Black prince, and I show you the relationship that we were supposed to get in the Disney movie. And I imagined it with Black actors like Sally Richardson Whitfield, Angela Bassett, Samuel L. Jackson, Dondra T. Whitfield, Michael Ealy. I wanted to do it like a Disney princess movie with an all-Black cast. So awesome. I know that it's possible to do that type of stuff, and that's what I want to do for people, is give us those type of images so that our kids can look up to ourselves and see an image of ourselves that is just as beautiful as many of these mainstream images that they promote for us, because they want to make princess stories with these white princesses, and it has the Black girls thinking that only a princess can be white when we have Black princesses, and that's what I wanted to show in that story.
And queens and empress and the whole game.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is it, y'all. I am signing off. Thank you, Brother James, and I'm going to, okay, I got it now. All right. Well, that's it. We're going to call it a night.
All right. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Thank you, brother. Peace.
All right. Peace.
Yes, everybody. 2 great shows today. Hold on. I got to save his number real quick. 2 great shows, the judge and the author, Brother James. All right. As always, y'all. As always, live your life of integrity without hate, envy, or greed. Let's try to be kinder to each other. Peace and power. What the heck?